The first time I held the keys to my own place, I felt something crack open inside me. Freedom, pride, and maybe a bit of vengeance. I stood there at the threshold of my very first apartment, alone but smiling like I'd just won the lottery. And in a way, I had. Years of budgeting, skipping takeout, walking instead of Ubering, cutting back every unnecessary penny, all of it had brought me to this moment. "I'm finally home," I whispered. "My name's Natalie Quinn, 29, professional spreadsheet sorceress, and self-proclaimed queen of frugal living. I just moved into a cozy little unit in the heart of the city. Nothing fancy, but it was mine. After spending the better part of a decade living in rentals where the wallpaper peeled like bad sunburn, and the faucets cried louder than my love life, this was everything. Most people would have thrown a big bash. Me? I kept it intimate. A housewarming dinner with a few close friends, some coworkers, and a couple old college buddies who still remembered me as the one with the color-coded to-do lists. Just people who actually cared. I even invited Mom and my younger sister, Chloe, out of sheer obligation, not expectation. You know the type, Chloe, not the friends. Blonde bombshell. 25 going on 17 emotionally, with a wardrobe worth more than my car and zero clue how bills worked. She didn't reply. Classic Chloe. Mom texted, "Oh, sweetie, I've got a busy weekend at the office, but congrats." Also classic. She worked part-time and spent more time fussing over Chloe's nail appointments than anything professional. But the night of my gathering? Magical. Laughter, warm lighting, good wine. Janet from accounting brought a vintage bottle, and my high school bestie Luke made his famous jalapeno sliders. Someone even toasted to hard work paying off, and I almost cried. For once, I felt like I wasn't the overlooked one. Until 3 weeks later. I was deep in Sunday cleaning mode, messy bun, sweatpants blasting 2000s pop, when the doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone, so I peeked through the peephole, and my stomach flipped. There they were. Mom in her high heels and statement necklace, and Chloe with her designer sunglasses perched on her head like some bored influencer. No call, no text. Just vibes, apparently. "Aren't you going to invite us in?" Mom asked, already brushing past me. I stood there, stunned. "Sure. Come on in, I guess." Chloe followed, scanning my apartment like it was a bad Airbnb. "Ugh, this wallpaper. Very independent woman chic," she said, clearly meaning it as an insult. I forced a smile. "Want some tea?" While the kettle boiled, Chloe removed her sunglasses with an exaggerated sigh and plopped onto a stool. "So, bad news. Evan and I broke up. He was being super controlling. Wanted me to pay rent and stuff. Can you imagine?" I blinked. "You mean like a normal adult?" Chloe rolled her eyes. "Anyway, I had to move out. And finding a decent place around here, impossible. Rent is insane. I was thinking I could crash here just for a few months." The mug in my hand paused midair. I knew this tone. This was the Chloe con pitch. "Chloe, I just moved in. I haven't even unpacked everything yet. I really need space to settle." Mom jumped in immediately. "Natalie, she's your sister. Where's your compassion?" I took a breath. "Mom, she could stay with you. You've got 2 guest rooms." Chloe made a gagging sound. "Your place is a graveyard. It smells like cats and Bengay. There's nothing around. No nightlife. No one under 60. I stared at her. "So, my home's not good enough, but mine is?" "You're being selfish," Mom snapped. "She's had a rough time, and you're sitting here in your fancy new apartment, refusing to help your own sister." And there it was. The lifelong pattern playing out again. Chloe messes up. I clean it up. Mom enables it all. It was Chloe's turn again. "Please, Nat. Just for a few months. I'll find a job. I'll save. I'll be out before you know it." I wanted to say no. Every fiber of my being screamed, say no. Instead, I looked into her teary eyes and said, 4 months. That's it. You get a job, you contribute, and then you're out." Her smile was instant. Too instant. "Thank you. You're the best sister ever." That night, she arrived with 3 oversized suitcases, a duffel bag, and a look of triumph. "Where's my room?" she chirped, glancing toward my bedroom. "Guest room," I said quickly. "Or back to Mom's." "Your call." She sulked but didn't argue. That was probably her playing the long game. I made pasta. We sat down for dinner. Okay, I said. Ground rules. No guests without asking. No loud music. Be mindful of water and electricity. Fine, she said between bites. You're worse than a landlord, you know. Over the next few weeks, it actually went. Okay, she cooked, cleaned a little, talked about job interviews downtown, even brought home flowers one day. For a moment, I started to believe she might be turning a corner. Maybe the crash had humbled her. Then week 4 rolled in. Dirty dishes, loud music. Netflix logged into my account all day. No groceries, no cooking, no cleaning. Just Chloe, back in full chaos mode, sprawled across my couch like a decorative pillow, scrolling Instagram and complaining about how corporate vibes give her acne. And job interviews? Yeah, right? I asked one night, any leads? She shrugged. Most jobs want, experience. Rude. I wanted to scream. Still, I told myself, 4 months. I can survive 4 months. Spoiler alert, I was wrong. By week 5, I felt like a stranger in my own home. The quiet peace I'd worked so hard for had evaporated, replaced with high-pitched laughter echoing through thin apartment walls and the constant scent of takeout. I never ordered. Chloe had gone from guest to uninvited roommate faster than I could say, rent's due. I'd come home from work to find her sprawled on my couch, some reality show blasting in the background, her phone in one hand, a smoothie in the other. The kitchen? Disaster zone. Empty ramen cups, 3 coffee mugs with lipstick stains, and enough crumbs to attract an ant army. I remember standing in the doorway one Thursday, still in my blazer and heels, watching her laugh at something on her phone while surrounded by wrappers and unwashed dishes. You didn't clean today? I asked, setting my bag down. She didn't even look up. But then I started this new skincare routine and, you're not supposed to sweat after exfoliating. I blinked. Chloe, that's not how any of this works. She rolled her eyes like I was the idiot. Don't be so uptight. It's not that serious. But it was. Because I was working overtime to pay off the new couch. She treated like a daybed. The utilities she blasted like a hotel guest. And the groceries she devoured like she was in a cooking competition with herself. The final straw came one Friday night. I had just finished scrubbing the bathroom. Her hair clogged the drain again, surprise, and collapsed on the couch. Just me, a bowl of popcorn, and a bad rom-com queued up. Finally, a moment of peace. Then the door burst open. Chloe came in giggling, dragging 2 strangers behind her. One of them clutched a 6-pack, and the other wore sunglasses indoors. Nat, meet Rocco and Devin. They're friends from the club. Aren't they cute? I sat up slowly. Why are they here? They needed a place to crash for a bit. Just tonight. You don't mind, right? I stared at her. She actually believed I'd be fine with this. Chloe, we had an agreement. No guests without asking me first. She pouted. Oh my God, you're not seriously kicking them out. That's so embarrassing. I stood, trying to keep my voice calm. I'm not running a hostel. They can't stay. Devin snorted. Chill? We're just here to vibe. No, you're not, I said, pointing at the door. Chloe stomped into her room, slammed the door like a brat, and left her 2 friends awkwardly lingering until they finally left without a word. The next morning, I got a text from Mom. No hello. No how are you. Just why are you making Chloe feel unsafe? I stared at my phone, stunned. Unsafe? The woman treating my home like her personal playground was now the victim? I texted back, Mom. She brought home 2 random men at midnight without telling me. I'm not okay with that. She replied, she's your sister. You're being paranoid. Of course. Chloe couldn't do wrong. Not in Mom's eyes. So I started documenting everything. Dates, expenses, utility spikes, photos of the mess. I needed receipts. If Mom was going to defend Chloe to the grave, I'd have proof carved in digital stone. Chloe, meanwhile, started acting like she owned the place. She'd throw tantrums if I asked her to clean. She started using my skincare products, the expensive stuff, and even borrowed my heels without asking. I confronted her one evening after noticing my closet had been raided. Were you in my room? She was sprawled across her bed in leggings and a sports bra, sipping kombucha like she was living her best influencer life. Relax. I needed something cute for brunch. You could have asked. She gave a sarcastic smile. You weren't home. And I figured what's yours is mine, right? Like family? I stared at her. No, that's not how this works. Her smile faded. God, you're exhausting. I don't know how anyone puts up with you. She slammed the door again. The slamming had become her signature exit move. I started locking my bedroom door after that. A week later, I came home to find she had used my card to order Uber Eats. Again. When I confronted her, she shrugged. You said I could use it for emergencies. I was starving. I pulled the receipt from my bag. $37 for sushi and boba is not an emergency. Maybe not for you, she muttered, stuffing her face with the evidence. That night, I sat on my bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering how the hell I had let this happen. I had built a life with care and discipline. And I had handed the keys, literally, to someone who treated responsibility like a bad word. I needed to end this. The next morning, I left a note on the fridge. Meeting tonight at 6. We need to talk. N. She texted me a middle finger emoji. At 6 sharp, I stood in the kitchen, arms crossed. Chloe sauntered in like she was arriving at a spa. I didn't waste time. Your 4 months are up next week. She blinked. So you need to start packing. I've already given you more time than agreed. And you've made zero effort to get a job, save money, or act like a decent roommate. Her expression hardened. You're seriously kicking me out? Just like that? I nodded. Just like that. You're unbelievable, she snapped. You've always hated me. I wanted you to grow up, I said quietly. But you don't want to. And I'm done sacrificing my peace for your mess. She stormed off, calling Mom on speaker loud enough for me to hear every word. She's being so cruel. She's kicking me out on the street. I have nowhere to go. I heard Mom's voice through the phone, shrill and immediate. Put me on with her. Now. I didn't wait. I walked into my room, shut the door, and locked it. I could hear Chloe pacing the living room, yelling into her phone. But I didn't go out there. Not this time. Something in me had shifted. This wasn't just about my apartment. It was about finally standing up for myself. For the years of being the responsible one, the forgotten one, the one who always got blamed while Chloe got coddled, I wasn't doing it anymore. Not for Chloe, not for Mom, not for anyone who couldn't respect the life I built. I don't know what I expected after that night. Maybe silence. Maybe passive-aggressive cold shoulders. Maybe her packing quietly and storming out without fanfare. But Chloe? She didn't go quietly. She went nuclear. The next morning, she made pancakes. From scratch. Which, to be clear, she had never done before. Not in her life. She even cleaned the living room, lit a candle, and called me sis, like she just watched a YouTube video on how to manipulate family into forgiving you. You look stressed, she said, pouring me coffee with this fake sweet voice. Rough day at work yesterday? I stared at her. Did Mom tell you to do this? She tilted her head like an innocent puppy. Do what? This whole, I'm suddenly helpful and emotionally available routine. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Can't I just be nice? Not like this. She couldn't. Something was off. I knew her too well. It wasn't kindness, it was bait. I didn't take it. She tried again the next day. Ordered groceries on my card, of course, and told me, look, I stocked up for us. Thought I'd help out. I checked the receipt. Over $150, mostly on kombucha, snacks, and some overpriced skincare from the wellness section. Help out, please. She was playing a long game now, luring me into guilt, acting like the responsible sister she thought I wanted. But it was all theater. Behind that stage smile, she was still stalling. The week ticked by, and the tension in the apartment got thick enough to choke on. I stuck post-its on her door every day. 3 days left, 2 days. Final reminder, tomorrow. She ignored them. Of course she did. Then, on the day she was supposed to move out, 4 months to the day, I came home and her stuff was still there, not packed, not touched. Instead, she was curled up in my blanket on my couch, watching some dating show and eating ice cream directly from the carton. You didn't pack, I said from the doorway. She didn't even flinch. Yeah, about that. I dropped my keys on the counter and crossed my arms. She muted the TV and turned toward me, voice suddenly calm and rehearsed. I talked to Mom, and I did some reading. You can't actually evict a tenant without notice. My jaw tensed. You're not a tenant, Chloe. She raised an eyebrow. I've been here 4 months. Got mail delivered here. That counts. I stared at her, stunned. Are you threatening me with squatters' rights? She shrugged. Not threatening, just informing. It hit me like a punch in the stomach. She wasn't just refusing to leave. She had planned this. Or maybe Mom had. Either way, they weren't just crossing boundaries, they were erasing them completely. I walked into my room, locked the door, and sat on the edge of the bed, heart pounding. My own sister had turned my home into a battlefield, and she was smug about it. So I did what I always do, I documented everything. Again, I gathered texts, emails, screenshots. I called my friend Nadia, a paralegal, and asked about the laws. She sent me a few links, and even offered to help write a formal notice. Don't wait, she warned. You let her stay longer, it'll only get worse. That night, I taped the notice to her bedroom door. A real one this time, typed, dated, and signed. Chloe ripped it off within seconds. You're so dramatic, she snapped, storming into the kitchen. You think this makes you powerful? No, I said, standing still. Just prepared. She laughed, cruel and sharp. You think you're better than me because you play adult better? You're boring, Natalie, pathetic. Alone. I'm not alone, I said, voice low. I chose peace. You never gave me that. She snatched her phone, dialed someone, and walked into the hallway. A few minutes later, the doorbell rang. I knew who it was before I opened it. Mom. She walked in like she owned the place. No hello. No eye contact. Just judgment rolling off her in waves. I cannot believe you're doing this, she started. Throwing your sister out over what? A few dishes and some groceries? No, Mom, I said firmly. I'm asking her to leave because she's been disrespectful, irresponsible, and she treats me like I owe her everything. She's your sister. I'm not her lifeline, I snapped. I didn't sign up to be her second parent. Mom folded her arms. This is the day I regret most, giving birth to someone so cold. The words sliced through me. Not just because they hurt, but because she meant them. No hesitation, no filter. I stood there frozen, every part of me burning. Then she did it. She slapped me. Hard. My head snapped to the side, my cheek instantly stinging. The entire room went quiet. Even Chloe looked stunned. You ungrateful girl, Mom hissed. You'll regret this. I didn't say a word. Not when they stormed out. Not when the door slammed. Not even as I stood alone, hand on my cheek, tears burning the back of my eyes. I just sat on the couch, alone, trembling, hurt, but also clear. I wasn't going back. Not this time. No more guilt. No more bending so they could break me. The next day, I changed the locks. I filed a formal eviction notice with a lawyer's help. And when Chloe tried to scream about her rights, I handed her a copy of the lease, which only had my name on it. Then I left the apartment to spend the night at my friend's place, just in case things got worse. 3 days later, she was gone. No warning, no goodbye. Just her room empty, her junk gone, and the key tossed on the kitchen counter. But the story didn't end there. My birthday was the next week. I wasn't planning anything big. Just wine, a few close friends, maybe some karaoke in the living room. It was my first birthday in my space. No freeloaders, no drama, or so I thought. Halfway through the night, laughter echoing through the apartment, candles flickering on my cake, the doorbell rang. And the moment I opened it, I knew peace wasn't mine just yet. There are certain moments in life where time slows, just enough for your brain to scream, "Don't open that door." But I did. And of course it was Mom. There she stood in full performance mode, hair done, earrings dangling, the same judgmental frown she wore like perfume. She didn't even say happy birthday, just shoved past me like I was a doormat. I barely got out. Mom, what are you doing here? She didn't answer. She walked into my living room, eyes scanning my friends like they were furniture. The laughter that had filled the space only moments ago, it died fast. Everyone froze. All eyes were on her. I can't believe you're all here celebrating this, she announced, gesturing to me like I was a criminal on trial. When she threw her own sister out into the street in the middle of the night, a hush fell over the room. I felt my throat tighten. Mom, I said, keeping my voice calm. This isn't the time. Please. She ignored me. You should all know what she did. After everything we've done for her, she kicked her own flesh and blood out like garbage. Ryan, one of my oldest friends, stepped forward. "MAAM, I think." "Don't," I said quietly. "It's okay." It wasn't, but I had to handle it myself. "She was out of control, Mom," I said, steady but firm. "She partied every night, disrespected my space, used my money, and refused to grow up." Mom's voice rose. "So you just throw her out? Where's your compassion? Your humanity? You've become cold, Natalie, bitter and cruel." I could feel my hands shaking. I took a breath, deep, centered. The room was watching, but I wasn't going to hide anymore. She had 4 months. 4. Rent-free, responsibility-free. She didn't get a job. She didn't clean. She treated me like I was her backup plan. I looked around. Faces nodded. They'd heard bits of this story before. Now they were seeing the storm up close. She lied. She manipulated. She used me, Mom. And every time I tried to set a boundary, you defended her. Mom's eyes flared. "You're selfish." "No," I said, louder now. "I finally stopped being the doormat." She stepped closer. "Your father would be ashamed of you." That hit hard, the old, familiar guilt rising in my chest. But this time I didn't let it bury me. "No," I whispered. "He'd be ashamed of how you turned Chloe into someone who thinks the world owes her everything." Then, the crack. Her hand flew before I could react. The slap wasn't just physical. It was everything she never said, everything she did say, and every time she chose Chloe over me, all rolled into one open-palmed hit. The room gasped. Someone dropped a wine glass. I heard it shatter, but my ears were ringing too loud to care. My cheek stung, but I didn't move. She stared at me, her eyes wide, breath shallow. "You're no daughter of mine," she spat. And then she turned and stormed out, slamming the door behind her like it owed her an apology. Silence. The kind that presses down on you, heavy, humiliating. I stood frozen, my face still burning, my heart raw. Amy, my cousin from Dad's side, was the first to move. She wrapped her arms around me so tight I almost collapsed into her. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "You didn't deserve that." Then the dam broke. I cried. Right there in the middle of my birthday party, in front of people I cared about, I let the tears fall. Not because of the slap, but because of all the years leading up to it. All the little cuts that finally bled too deep. My guests rallied. Luke handed me tissues. Janet brought me water. Olivia dimmed the lights and turned off the music. We didn't restart the party. We didn't even cut the cake. Instead, they sat with me, on the floor, on the couch, wherever, just with me, listening, supporting. No judgment, no guilt trips, just real, steady presence. And for the first time, I realized something that almost made me cry harder. I did have a family, just not the one I was born into. The next few weeks were quiet. Too quiet, honestly. No Chloe, no slammed doors, no loud TikToks echoing through the walls. Just peace. Warm coffee in the morning. My favorite playlist humming softly while I folded laundry. Candles burning without fear of being left unattended. Groceries lasting more than 3 days. I should have felt better. But healing doesn't come with a deadline. Some days I still flinched when my phone rang, afraid it'd be Mom calling to yell again. Other days I felt guilty for feeling good without them around. And then, 4 weeks after the birthday fiasco, Amy called. "Just thought you should know," she said carefully. "Chloe. And that guy she's seeing, the leather jacket guy, they moved in with your mom." I said nothing. "I'm sorry," she added. "Don't be," I replied. "They deserve each other." I meant it. But deep down, it still ached. Chloe, despite everything, was still my sister. And Mom. As twisted as her loyalty had become, she was still the woman who raised me. But love doesn't excuse abuse. And family doesn't justify betrayal. So I moved on. I redecorated the apartment, again, took yoga, bought a used piano, joined a book club, got promoted at work. Bit by bit, I rebuilt. The quiet became comforting, the silence healing, until the day my phone lit up. Mom calling, I froze. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity is a stubborn thing. I picked up. "Natalie?" Her voice was different, small, shaky, like glass just before it breaks. "Please don't hang up," she said. I need to talk to you. I stayed quiet. She continued. You were right. Silence. About Chloe. About everything. Her voice cracked. They've taken over the house. Chloe and that Jeffrey boy. They don't work. They drink. They throw parties. Loud ones. I tried to stop them, and Chloe, her breath caught. She pushed me. I closed my eyes. She pushed me down. There was crying on the other end now. I didn't know what to do. I didn't think it would ever get this bad. I waited. Then she said it. The part I never thought I'd hear. I'm sorry. It didn't come with excuses. No blame. Just raw truth. I made a mistake. Many. The first see it now. I should have listened. I should have believed you. I was so busy protecting her that I didn't protect you. I stayed silent for a long time. Not out of anger, just processing. Then I said softly, "You need to handle this yourself, Mom." I did my part. I survived my part. And then, gently, I hung up, blocked the number. Again. But the updates still came. Amy told me about the eviction papers, the screaming matches, the cops getting called, the neighbors complaining. Apparently, Chloe's perfect storm had finally made landfall at Mom's house. And you know what? I didn't feel joy. I didn't feel rage. I just felt free. There's a strange kind of quiet that settles after you choose yourself. It's not loud or triumphant. It doesn't come with confetti or applause. It's soft, slow, the kind of peace that creeps in while you're washing dishes, humming to your favorite playlist, realizing halfway through, I'm not tense anymore. That's what my life became. Quiet mornings. Coffee that stayed hot because no one left the door open. Books left on the table where I actually found them. My wine untouched. My shampoo no longer mysteriously empty. My space finally mine. And not just the apartment. Me, I was mine again. I didn't realize how long I'd been holding my breath until I could finally exhale. No text from Chloe. No sudden drop-ins. No mom storming in like she had a title deed to my living room. For a while, I waited for the other shoe to drop. But nothing came. Just time. And space. And me. Amy kept me in the loop, but only when I asked. I didn't want to play-by-play of the chaos anymore. Just the highlights. When relevant. Apparently, Mom had filed the eviction paperwork herself. Chloe refused to leave. Claimed the house was just as much hers. Jeffrey, the boyfriend with the leather jacket and a mouthful of charm but zero income, backed her up. Police got called twice. Neighbors started whispering. One of them even filmed a screaming match that ended up on a neighborhood Facebook group. Amy said it had over 200 comments. Poetic. I didn't comment. Didn't like the post. Didn't even laugh. That part of me, the one that wanted revenge, had gone quiet too. What I wanted now was peace, and to build something out of the ashes they left behind. So I started rebuilding, not in some dramatic movie montage way, but in small, steady steps. I bought new curtains, switched out the photos on my gallery wall, took down the ones with Mom and Chloe, replaced them with memories that didn't hurt. College graduation, my trip to Oregon, a blurry pic of me and Amy drunk on cranberry spritzers. Little things, but they mattered. I picked up yoga again, not for the trend, not for Instagram, just for me. Stretching my body into shapes that felt awkward at first, then powerful. It was like learning how to inhabit myself again. I said yes to more happy hours with friends. Started hosting dinner nights once a month. My living room turned into a gathering place for people who actually respected it. And me. Luke started dating someone new and brought her over for board game night. Janet got promoted and screamed in my kitchen when she told me. Ryan and Olivia got engaged and asked me to officiate their wedding. "You've got this grounding energy," Olivia said. "Like you know who you are." That sentence stuck with me. Because for the first time in my life, I think I did. About 3 months after the birthday disaster, I ran into an old neighbor from our childhood block at the farmer's market. She looked surprised to see me. "Your mom's house is a mess these days," she said without even a greeting. Loud music. Strangers coming and going. "It's not like how it used to be when your dad was alive." I nodded. "Yeah, I've heard. You doing okay, though?" "I'm good," I said honestly. "Really good," she smiled. "You always were the one with your head on straight. Guess it's paying off now." That stuck too. It was easy to brush off compliments in the past, but this one hit different. Because I wasn't surviving anymore. I was thriving. And not in a look at me kind of way. In the I sleep through the night, don't have to hide my food, dance in my kitchen way. No one warned me how addictive peace could be. Then, one rainy Saturday, I got a letter in the mail. A real letter? Handwritten. No return address, but the handwriting was unmistakable. Mom. I stared at it for a full minute before opening it. Natalie, I know you probably don't want to hear from me, and you have every right to feel that way. I was wrong. I see that now, clearer than I ever have before. I enabled Chloe. I ignored you. I punished you for being stable and rewarded her for chaos. I thought I was protecting her, but all I did was hurt you. She's gone now. I don't know where. One night she screamed at me, packed a bag, and left with Jeffrey. Haven't heard from either since. The house is quiet now, but not peaceful. It's just empty. I miss you. I miss the daughter I should have cherished more. The one who tried to hold us all together while I kept looking the other way. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know I'm sorry. For everything, Mom. I read it twice. Maybe 3 times. And then I folded it back up and set it on the kitchen table. I didn't cry. I didn't text her. I didn't rip it up either. I just let it sit there. Proof that, sometimes, the people who hurt you might finally see it. But that doesn't mean they get access to your peace again. Forgiveness isn't a front door. It's a gate. You decide who gets the code. That night, I called Amy. Guess who I got a letter from? She groaned. Let me guess. Queen Denial. I laughed. She actually admitted she was wrong. Amy went quiet for a second. Wow, I mean, good. But still, that doesn't undo the past. I know, I said. I don't think I want a relationship, but it was weirdly nice to hear it. Amy hummed. Closure comes in weird forms. Sometimes it's an apology. Sometimes it's just knowing you don't need one anymore. Exactly. We talked for another hour about work, her new dog, my attempts at baking banana bread, normal things, light things. When I hung up, I looked at the letter again. Then I opened my laptop, pulled up a blank document, and started writing. Not to her, just writing. About everything. The apartment, Chloe, Mom, the slap, the tears, the laughter that came after. All of it. For the first time, I wasn't afraid to put it all on the page. It wasn't just a story anymore. It was mine. The full truth. Messy, complicated, unapologetically honest, and oddly kind of beautiful. I didn't expect peace to feel like this. Not loud, not cinematic, just steady. Like finally learning the rhythm of your own heartbeat after years of listening to everyone else's noise. It wasn't a perfect ending. It wasn't even an ending, but it was mine. And that was enough. I didn't respond to Mom's letter, not because I was angry, but because I didn't need to. I had said all I needed when I chose not to pick up the phone, not to engage, not to explain one more time why her love had felt like a performance with Chloe in the spotlight. Some people learn from pain. Some people repeat it. I didn't know which one she'd become, but either way, I'd stopped holding my breath waiting for change. The difference now? I wasn't hoping to be heard. I was listening to myself instead. Spring came fast. The cold mornings turned soft, and sunlight crept through my windows like an old friend. I swapped the throw blankets on the couch for bright colors, bought tulips every Saturday just because they made me smile. Little by little, I made my apartment feel like home again. Not a survival bunker. Not a compromise. Just home. The guest room stayed empty for a while. I thought about turning it into an office, maybe a mini reading nook. But then Luke suggested something else. Why not host someone who deserves the space, he said. Like a friend crashing for a weekend, or your cousin from Seattle, or me when Olivia kicks me out for snoring. I laughed harder than I had in days. And just like that, the idea stuck. The room wasn't a reminder of Chloe anymore. It was potential. Something waiting to be filled with joy, not dread. That was new for me, allowing myself to imagine good things. By summer, I barely recognized the woman in the mirror. Not because I changed how I looked, but because I changed how I lived. I walked taller, smiled without double-checking the room, set boundaries without apology. I wasn't afraid of being too much or not enough. I was just Natalie, a woman who had been told for years that she was second best, too serious, too cold, when really, she was just carrying everyone else's weight, and calling it balance. But not anymore. Amy and I made it a ritual, wine nights once a week. No agenda, just venting, laughing, sometimes crying. We talked about everything. The letter from Mom, her decision to go no contact with their side of the family, our shared memories of Dad, and how different things might have been if he were still around. "He'd be proud of you, you know," she said one night, topping off my glass. I smiled at that. Not the polite, automatic kind. A real one. "I think he'd be proud of you too," she nodded. Maybe we're finally becoming the women we needed growing up. That stuck with me for days. Because she was right. We weren't just healing from the wounds. We were breaking the pattern. A few months later, I got an email from a local women's shelter. I had signed up to volunteer back in March, not expecting anything. But they had an opening mentoring young women getting back on their feet. I stared at the screen for a while. The part of me that once doubted I had anything valuable to offer started to whisper again, but I shut it down. Because I did have something to offer, my story. Not polished, not pretty, but honest. I accepted the role. The first session was rough. I sat across from a 22-year-old girl who looked more tired than someone twice her age. She had a baby, no family support, and a deep mistrust in anyone who said, "I'm here to help." I didn't give her some pep talk about resilience or dreams. I just told her about the time I let my sister move in and almost lost everything, including myself. She listened, really listened. Then she said, "So you've been there?" And I said, "I've been all over the map. But yeah, I know what it's like to be surrounded by people and still feel completely alone." Her eyes softened. "You seem okay now." I paused. "I'm getting there, and that counts." She nodded. "Yeah, it does." Months passed. Mom never reached out again. Maybe she knew the door was closed for now. Maybe she was too embarrassed. Or maybe she was still waiting for Chloe to come back. I didn't wonder about it often. I still thought about my sister sometimes. Not with anger, just distance. Like a memory that no longer had sharp edges, just faded outlines. I didn't know where she was. I didn't ask. The last I heard, she and Jeffrey split. No surprise there. Amy said she might be staying with someone else now. Another guy with a car he couldn't afford, and a vague music career. Some things don't change. But I did. That was enough. 1 year to the day after the slap, yeah, that slap, I threw myself another birthday party. This one was smaller, just close friends. A few new ones I met through mentoring. Amy, Luke, and Olivia, my neighbors from down the hall. People who had shown up without needing to be asked. People who didn't need to be convinced that I mattered. We laughed. We danced in the kitchen. Janet made her signature chocolate cake again. The same one from the first party. Only this time, I didn't cry. I stood up with my glass of wine, clinked it with a fork, and said, "Thank you. Not just for being here, but for showing me what real love and support look like." Luke raised his glass. To Natalie and her sacred, peaceful apartment. Everyone cheered. And in that moment, I felt it. Not revenge, not closure, something better, wholeness. Later that night, when everyone had gone and the music had faded, I sat on the balcony with a blanket around my shoulders and a glass of red wine in hand. The city buzzed below, distant and soft. I looked out over the skyline, lights blinking like quiet reminders. You made it through. Not untouched, not unscarred, but whole and free. And finally, home. Story 2. At the reunion, my family made fun of me for being a hungry artist. Cartoons are still being drawn. My sister went out. They had no idea that I was the CEO of the animation studio that had recently acquired their business. I purposefully picked the most basic item from my closet and straightened my basic black dress in the penthouse apartment mirror. On my desk was the standard issue MacBook that I had purchased especially for family trips. A few simple digital artworks are shown on the screen. Nothing very noteworthy. Not a trace of the empire I had established. The gold embossing on the Morrison family reunion invitation caught the early sun as it sat on my kitchen counter. As usual, it was held at my sister Diana's Hampton's estate. Come celebrate family accomplishment with us. I pondered whether they would ever celebrate any of mine as the card declared. My CFO sent me a message on our most recent purchase. and my phone buzzed. Contracts are prepared. The sale was just authorized by the tax board and Maya Morris. They don't know. The purchaser is Dreamscape Animation Studios. Tucking the phone inside my handbag, I grin. My accomplishment, which I had carefully concealed for 10 years, was going to pay off in the most fulfilling way imaginable. I had time to think about how I got here throughout the trip to the Hamptons. It meant one thing to grow up in the Morrison household. It was all business. James Morrison, my father, started Morrison Tech from the bottom up and made it a reputable brand in the corporate software industry. Diana, my sister, had risen through the ranks of the corporation and earned her MBA from Harvard, exactly like him. Then there was me, the letdown. The daughter who chose to scribble in notebooks rather than research business tactics. Maya, art is not a career, as my dad used to say. He said in a disapproving tone. At best, it's a pastime. At worst, it's a diversion. I still recall the day I informed Dad that rather than taking my spot at Wharton, I would be majoring in animation at art school. There was an overwhelming hush in our dining room. You're squandering your life. Diana had stated so while our mother used a tissue to gently wipe her eyes, as though I had suddenly revealed a fatal condition. What? Did they not know? What? I also had been attending night classes in business administration, but I never mentioned this to them. They believed that I was squandering my time in art school. In reality, I was laying the groundwork for something greater than they could have ever imagined. I won a student competition with my first animated short film. It was not much of a reward. It was sufficient to get started, although it only came with $5,000 sand, some industry exposure. Using the funds, I hired 2 more artists to produce content for small businesses out of my modest flat. At that point, I made an intriguing discovery. Good animated training movies, marketing collateral, and product demos were in high demand in the business sector. The demand for top-notch digital material was enormous, but there weren't many studios capable of producing it. My little team grew to 15 members in just 2 years. On all the documentation, I used my middle name, Phoenix, and we incorporated as Dreamscape Animation Studios. What would become one of the nation's most inventive animation firms was founded by Maya Phoenix, not Maya Morrison. The family was unaware. Naturally, to them, I was still simply Maya, the struggling artist who occasionally performed freelance work for nearby companies or sold a digital piece online. I only provided enough details to keep the illusion going each time they inquired about my professional background. Then Johanna's mansion appeared. What you would anticipate from someone who judged success in square footage are its immaculate landscaping and well-kept lawns. My very understated Honda Civic looked even more out of place, as premium brand cards lined the circular driveway. I paused to look at my mirror, one more before parking, at the far end of the drive. I had worn very little makeup, kept my hair basic, and left my expensive clothing at home. I had meticulously planned every aspect of my look to preserve the perception my family held of me. The family, the striving artist, disappointment, Maya. As I got closer to the home, I heard my mother's voice over the driveway. We were beginning to question if you would attend. I gave her another air kiss, seeing as her eyes darted over my ensemble, likely figuring out how much it cost and judging it to be suitably unimpressive. Traffic. I followed her inside and explained that I needed to do a commission. Oh, your drawings were really purchased by someone? There was a brief but purposeful wait before the drawings. If only she were aware that I had just approved a $50 million deal with a big tech company for a number of animated training courses yesterday. Rather, I gave a sheepish smile. Only a website for a small business. Nothing noteworthy. The mansion was just as I had remembered it from past parties, ostentatiously furnished and intended to highlight the Morrisons' achievements. The walls were covered with pictures. Diana during her graduation from Harvard. Diana with the tech board from Morrison. Diana on Business Weekly's cover. I was in the one high school picture. Prior to my decision to choose art before profit, I let everyone down. When we walked in, the great room was already packed with family. The air was filled with discussions about market trends, mergers, and stocks. James, my cousin, was presiding over the fireplace, discussing his most recent hedge fund acquisition. Patricia was displaying pictures of her son's recently launched business, and they're there in the middle of everything. Did Diana look flawless in what I identified as an Oscar de la Renta, a gown that cost $12,000? Maya. Her voice had that usual ring of contempt as she yelled out, "I'm very happy you could join us despite your artistic endeavors." She gave me a quick hug. She was cautious not to rumple her gown. "You look." She hesitated, trying to find a tactful phrase. "Feeling cozy? Regards." Playing the part she expected of me, I murmured, tugging at my target dress. "You look stunning in your clothing." She smoothed the cloth and established that it was Oscar de la Renta, a small party to close our most recent purchase. Our largest rival in the corporate software market was recently acquired by Morrison Tech. I suppressed a smile. If only she realized that Morrison Tech itself would be a part of my tiny art studio in less than 24 hours. "That's fantastic," I responded. "It must be going nicely. Better than before." She smiled. "Actually, I was just outlining our next major relocation to everyone. We are expanding into the production of digital material. Animations for marketing, corporate training, and other purposes, you know." A beat skipped in my chest. I had pushed to buy Morrison Tech for just this reason. They intended to go into my region and may end up being a serious rival. On the contrary, they were going to join my empire. Diana was unaware of that at the time. "Animation?" I asked naively. "That sounds difficult." Diana chuckled. The room echoed with the sound. "Maya, oh, all of it is business strategy. Only technical effort is involved in the actual drawing process. For that, we'll employ individuals. People enjoy it." She gave me an ambiguous gesture. "Well, you know, Diana's laugh has attracted other family members. Cartoons are still being drawn." "Maya?" James, my cousin, inquired with a sneer on his face. "You know, if you want a real work, my fond is constantly searching for administrative help." "Thank you," I muttered. "However, I'm doing okay with my artwork." Diana's eyebrow went up. "Is it the reason you continue to drive that outdated Honda? Are you still residing in that little apartment?" They didn't know I owned the whole building in which my small flat was situated, or that part of it was part of my collection of cars. A pair of Teslas. The Honda was only used for visits with relatives. I manage. I gave a shrug. A mansion is not necessary for everyone. Succeeding is not the same as getting by. From behind me heard my father's voice. He was watching me with the same disappointed expression as I turned to see him. "Diana's most recent transaction is worth more than you will likely earn in your lifetime." Sketching images. Anger shot through me, but I forced it down. Less than a day. All of them will discover how mistaken they were. The press statement was produced and the contracts were signed. Maya Phoenix would be unveiled as the new owner of Morrison Tech and the CEO of Dreamscape Animation Studios by this time tomorrow. I simply grinned and excused myself to fetch a drink for the time being, though. Allow them to enjoy their moment of dominance. Allow them to hold on to their long-held beliefs about me. Retaliation is, after all, an art form for certain people. The family get-together continued into the night. My family members have a fresh chance to remind me of my alleged shortcomings every hour. I continued to check my phone, seeing messages from my executive team confirming that everything was ready for the launch tomorrow. The legal New York Times has authorized the press release. Transition papers are guarded exclusively. All set to sign. I was watching the sun set over Diana's immaculately kept garden from the floor to ceiling windows. My dad came over with a drink of his favorite scotch, the same brand I kept in my office in a case. However, he was unaware of that. His voice had that constant ring of sadness as he continued, "Maya, and I've been chatting to your mom. I prepared myself. These discussions seldom ended nicely. He said that artists will be needed by Diana's new digital content business. Basic level information. It would be solid employment, but nothing really inventive. Advantages. An actual pay." He made a point. Real, as though my work wasn't actually work. "Despite your lack of business expertise, she is open to giving you a chance." To cover my smile, I took a sip of my champagne. If only he were aware that the yearly income of my business was over 3 times that of Morrison Tech's digital services. "Thank you. I'm okay with my freelancing work, Dad." He let out a deep sigh. "You're 32, Maya. Don't you think it's time to get out of the drawing game and go out into the real world? Take a look at your sister. Through the windows, she has achieved success. Introspection. I could envision Diana presiding over our family members, most likely regaling them with yet another tale of her commercial achievements. She had always been adept at ensuring that everyone was aware of her level of success. I am aware that you believe art is merely teasing you. There's more to it than you think, but I said it carefully. Is there? He pointed to my modest appearance in my basic dress. Because all I see when I look at it is potential wasted. You had the opportunity to attend Wharton and contribute to the history of Morris and tech. You decided to discard everything instead. For what purpose? Digital drawings. Even after all these years, knowing what I knew, the words still hurt. In fact, I was about to tell him everything when my phone buzzed once more. Morris and the members of the tech board confirmed their attendance at tomorrow's 9 a.m. meeting. According to a message from my CEO, they don't know what's going on. I swallowed what I had admitted. Not 12 hours. That's how long I could wait. In fact, my father's prompting. Nothing, I said. You're correct. I made my decisions. I watched as the last of the sun's rays vanished behind the trees on the other side of the room after he shook his head and left. Diana's laugh rang out once more. Maya's always been different. She was saying to our Aunt Patricia, some people just aren't cut out for real success. At least she's finally accepting the hand up we're offering. I checked my watch. 7:30 p.m. In less than 14 hours, everything would change. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of subtle jabs and condescending offers of help. Cousin James offered to teach me basic business accounting. Aunt Patricia suggested her daughter could help me build a proper website for my little art business. Even my mother got in on it quietly, showing me job listings for graphic design positions at local marketing firms. Through it all, I maintained my facade of quiet resignation, playing the role of the struggling artist they all expected me to be. But inside I was counting down the hours. Finally, as the party wound down, Diana cornered me by the coat check. I hope you'll seriously consider Dad's offer, she said, her voice dripping with folks' concern. The position wouldn't be anything too challenging. Just basic artwork for corporate presentations, employee handbooks, that sort of thing. We'd start you at an entry-level salary, of course. But it's better than whatever you're making now. I thought about my penthouse office overlooking Central Park, about the team of over 200 artists and animators who worked for me, about the groundbreaking projects we were developing that would revolutionize digital animation. I'll think about it, I said. Don't think too long, she advised. Once we announce our expansion into digital content next week, we'll have plenty of qualified applicants. I'm only offering because you're family. I nodded, accepting my cup from the attendant. Speaking of announcements, will you be at the office tomorrow? Of course, she said proudly. 9 a.m. sharp. We have a major meeting with our mystery buyers. Some big animation studio is interested in partnering with us. She smirked. See what happens when you think bigger than just drawing pictures. Good luck with the meeting, I said, turning to leave. Maya, she called after me. That outfit you're wearing. If you do decide to take the job, you'll need to dress more professionally. Appearance matters in the corporate world. I looked down at my intentionally modest dress, thinking of the closet full of designer clothes, waiting at home. I'll keep that in mind. Driving home, I finally let myself feel the full weight of what was about to happen. 10 years of hiding my success, of letting them believe I was a failure, all leading to this moment back in my penthouse. I hung up my struggling artist costume and changed into silk pajamas that cost more than Diana's precious Oscar de la Renta dress. My real laptop, not the prop I took to family functions, was open on my desk, displaying the final acquisition documents for Morris and Tech. A message popped up from my assistant. Everything's set for tomorrow. Car will pick you up at 8:30 a.m. The Morrison Tech Board doesn't know you're attending the meeting. I poured myself a glass of scotch, the same brand my father had been drinking, and walked out onto my terrace. The city lights sparkled below a canvas of electric stars. Somewhere out there, Diana was probably still basking in her imagined triumph, telling her husband about her plans to give her struggling artist sister a chance at a real career. My phone rang. The private line only my executive team had access to. It was Marcus, my colleague Maya. He said when I answered, "Just wanted to confirm. You're ready for tomorrow. Once we make the announcement, everything changes. Your family. They'll finally see the truth." I finished all of it. "Are you sure you want to do it this way? We could send someone else to the meeting." Keep your identity private a little longer. I thought about my father's disappointment, Diana's condescension, all the years of being treated as less than because I chose art over their version of success. No, I said firmly. I want to be there. I want to see their faces when they realize who they're really dealing with. After hanging up, I stayed on the terrace for a long time, thinking about the journey that had brought me here. Every dismissive comment, every patronizing offer of help, every family gathering where I'd had to bite my tongue. It had all led to this moment. Tomorrow, they would realize that the girl they discarded as a failure had built something larger than they could dream tomorrow. They would recognize that success doesn't always look the way they believe it should. Tomorrow, Maya, the struggling artist, would be exposed as Maya Phoenix, CEO of Dreamscape Animation Studios and the new owner of Morrison Tech. I grinned, raising my glass to the city lights. The art of deceit was about to become a masterpiece of disclosure. The Morrison Tech boardroom appeared precisely as I remembered it from childhood trips, all mahogany and leather, old money and elder pride. I stood in the private elevator wearing a custom-tailored suit that cost more than 6 months at the entry-level pay. Diana had condescendingly offered me, "Ready, Miss Phoenix?" Marcus asked alongside me. We'd worked together since the beginning, when Dreamscape was only 3 individuals in my flat. I studied my reflection and the elevator's mirrored walls. Gone was the carefully constructed image of the suffering artist. Today, I looked every inch the CEO. I actually was ready. I verified right before the executive floor elevator doors opened. Diana had already entered the boardroom and was chatting animatedly with the other members of the board. In his tailored suit, my father looked imperious as he sat at the head of the table. At first, neither of them saw me, too preoccupied talking about their future goals. They had no idea how drastically their future would alter. "The person from Dreamscape ought to arrive at any moment," Diana said. "Tech and Maurice will rule the digital content market once this collaboration is complete." In fact, I stated as I entered the room, "Plans have been somewhat altered." There was silence in the room. Diana's professional poise broke as her mouth fell wide. I remembered Maya for the first time. My dad got up. His expression was one of confusion. "Why are you here?" "This board meeting is private." I put my briefcase on the table and grinned. "I am fully aware of the purpose of this meeting. I really gave it a call. This is absurd." Diana regained her voice and snapped. "There will be no need for security," Marcus said as he moved forward fluidly. "Miss Phoenix is quite entitled to be present." "Phoenix." Diana squinted her eyes. "Morrison is her name." "Actually," I answered, pulling out my bag and starting to hand out papers. "My professional name is Maya Phoenix. The name I came up with when I started Dreamscape Animation Studios. From scratch. The name that everyone in this room is going to know very well." My father glanced down at the papers I put in front of him, and the blood drained from his cheeks. Acquisition documents. Final contracts for sales.news releases. All set to go. This isn't feasible," he muttered. "Is it?" I sat down at the other end of the table. "Let me tell you about a girl who spotted a need for high-quality corporate animation and developed a firm that today generates over $100 million a year. She liked art and business equally and attended night classes in business administration while she was in art school." Diana was looking through the papers hurriedly. Her hands trembled. You are Dreamscape's CEO, Maya Phoenix. Likewise, I verified the business you've been attempting to collaborate with. I own it. It's been 10 years since I started it, approximately when you all determined that I was wasting my life. However, you're only an artist, though," Diana stumbled. "Your flat is small. Do you have a Honda?" I couldn't contain my laughter. "That little flat is in a building that I own. All I drive to is the Honda. Family activities. Do you think I should have arrived in my Porsche? I'm giving you more reason to believe that I couldn't afford it." My dad was still looking at the papers, especially the Dreamscapes page. "Current market value," he whispered all this time. I had agreed all along. Every family get-together when you made fun of my choice of profession, every patronizing offer of assistance, and every analogy to Diana's actual achievements. I was creating something greater than Tech and Morris could ever imagine. "Why?" Diana insisted. "Why keep it hidden? Why? Let's reflect." "As you would never have agreed to it," I interrupted her. You would have attempted to seize power and integrate it into the tech empire. You would have made my idea into simply one more business unit. I had to construct something according to my own specifications. I straightened my expensive suit and got to my feet. Furthermore, as of 9 a.m., Morrison Tech are proudly owned by Dreamscape Animation Studios this morning. We will be reorganizing the business with an emphasis on innovation instead of custom. Diana, you are welcome to interview for a position in our creative department, but your role as CEO will be eliminated. Until you retire next month, Father, you will now serve in an advising capacity. The room was completely silent. The other board members sat in startled silence, even though they generally defer to my father in everything. This is not possible. At last, Diana muttered. I can, in fact, and I have. Last week, the board approved the sale, but they were unaware that I was the buyer. The press release is sent out after the contracts are signed. I look at my watch every 10 minutes or so. Just like clockwork, my phone buzzed. The exclusive from the New York Times was live. Technology meets art. Morrison Tech is acquired by Dreamscape Animation Studios, and CEO Maya Phoenix makes a surprise announcement about her plans for digital innovation. I flipped my mind and showed them the headline. About the entry-level job you offered me yesterday, Diana, by the way. I will have to say no. Regretfully, I am overqualified. A haze of legal formalities dominated the following hour. My father sat in stunned silence at the head of the table, which was no longer under his authority, while board members signed transition documents. When the board members dispersed, leaving only my family, Diana at last regained her voice. All these years, she said in a hollow voice, you give us the impression that you're having trouble. We feel sorry for you. No, I corrected her. You decided to be pitying me. You decided to see what you anticipated. The family disappointment, the unsuccessful artist. You didn't even think I may be able to do more. My father, who appeared older than I had ever seen him, reluctantly got to his feet. I said, not rudely, I save it, Maya. This was not an act of retaliation. It was the appropriate business move, so I took it. Morrison Tech needs our innovation to stay afloat in the current market, and Dreamscape needs additional syntax infrastructure to grow. I packed up my belongings and got ready to go. Tonight, the merger will be formally announced over a family dinner at Le Bernardin. I hope both of you will be present. They gave a silent nod. Excellent. Diana too, of course. I stopped at the entrance to wear business attire. After all, in the business world, appearance counts. It was a calm journey back to my workplace. Marcus knew me well enough to let me think things out quietly. He didn't say anything till we arrived at my rooftop office with a view of the city. Feeling good, I gazed at the metropolis outside, reflecting on the journey that brought me to this point. It feels natural, like completing a painting that I've been working on for a decade. Messages were piling up on my phone. Family members who had just learned that the failing artist they had fired was really one of the most prosperous CEOs in the digital media industry after they had unexpectedly seen the news. After offering to teach me the fundamentals of accounting, my cousin James had already messaged me 3 times to ask if we could talk about possible collaborations with his hedge fund. Patricia, who had recommended that her daughter assist me in creating a website, kept phoning. My mom had texted too. How come you didn't inform us? I didn't respond to any of them. During supper tonight, they had the opportunity to converse. Rather, the first opened my laptop and started preparing the speech I would deliver to the staff of Tex and Maurice tomorrow. They needed to understand that, despite the fact that leadership was evolving, their positions were safe as long as they were prepared to embrace creativity and innovation. There was one last message from Diana I must comprehend. Can we have a conversation before supper, please? I gave it a lot of thinking before responding. Stop by my office, the authentic one. 5th Avenue, top level of the Phoenix building. You will be greeted at the security desk. Diana was noticeably uneasy as she stood in my office 1 hour later. She glanced about the room, admiring the original artwork hanging on the walls. She had never previously seen the panorama of Central Park, the obvious signs of achievement. Why? She asked plainly. Why? What? Why did I keep my achievement a secret? What made me purchase Morrison Tech? I let you all think I was a failure, but why? Everything. You and Dad would never have agreed to my achievement, on my terms. So I motioned for her to sit. You would have attempted to modify it to meet your standards for success. Quarterly reports, board meetings, and a conventional company structure. However, Dreamscape's success might be attributed to its unconventional approach. We are innovators, we produce, we operate in a distinct way. We are family, though, she objected. We may have been of assistance, as you did yesterday. I arched an eyebrow, pitying me by offering me an entry-level job. Diana, that isn't helpful. Control is that. She was graceful enough to appear ashamed. I had no idea, not even suspected, since you didn't look. Not one of you did. You saw what you anticipated. The creative sibling who failed in the real world. You never thought that commerce and art may not be incompatible. Diana was silent for a while as she gazed out at the cityscape. Now what? Right now? We now proceed. Dreamscape incorporates Morrison Tech, and together, we create something new. There could be a spot here for you if you're prepared to learn how to adjust. Not as CEO, though. No more. Slowly, with comprehension emerging in her eyes, she nodded. You are no longer my little sister, are you? I was never merely your little sister. I corrected her. You just didn't see my true self. As I stood there speaking to our extended family at Le Bernardin that night, I noticed something in their eyes that I had never seen before. Show respect, nor sympathy, nor condescension, but sincere admiration for fresh starts. I lifted my glass and toasted to the art of achievement. Later that night, back in my penthouse, I opened my old sketchbook, the one I carried through art school, filled with the early concepts that would become dreamscapes. The last page features the first projects. I had composed a quotation that had served as my compass over the years. Hiding your skill until the ideal time to reveal it is the finest art. I closed the book with a smile. At last, my work was finished. Story 3. You may cry later, my sister added, looking me in the eye. I own this day. She was unaware of my fiancé's true identity when she stole my wedding date and location. She was completely shattered by the truth. I take it you don't mind rescheduling? It's a modest wedding. Mine will be a genuine occasion. 3 weeks before to my wedding, my younger sister Talia stole my date, my location, and the last remaining respect I had for my family. She then told me just that. You can call me Nora Sinclair. I am a 35-year-old visual arts professor at a Portland tiny liberal arts institution. I'm not ostentatious. Not only do I not have hundreds of followers glued to my every filtered selfie, but I also don't follow trends. Talia's world is like that. She is a 28-year-old lifestyle and beauty influencer. Now, whatever it actually means, she is quite popular with my folks. Always had. I'm the silent one. The person who prioritized stability above aspirations. Not mine, but theirs. I met Julian, an architectural designer, at a guest lecture last fall, and we became engaged. He was gentle, compassionate, and appreciated things that others didn't. Similar to me, sketchbooks, long, wet walks along the Willamette River, and black coffee were the things that made us fall in love. I didn't want an elaborate wedding when we made the decision to tie the knot. I decided on a nearby art gallery that holds small weddings. Julian initially confessed his love for me there. We reserved the gallery more than a year in advance for May 20 at 3 p.m. It was little but significant. It was all prearranged. They sent out the invitations. My dress was custom made by a previous pupil, as was the caterer and florist. We were going to have a day. Talia then gave a call. She demanded that we arrange a family meal at our parents' place because she had important news. When I stepped in and noticed the champagne had already been popped, I should have realized something was wrong. Talia was radiant and seemed to be jumping in her chair. She was greeted with smiles from my parents, as if she had just declared global peace. I'm getting married. She gave Aiden a shriek. That's her 6-month boyfriend, a flamboyant advertising executive with flawless teeth and a Porsche. It has a personality, according to Parks. That's quick, I said, attempting to conceal my bewilderment. And guess what? Our wedding is scheduled on May 20th. Isn't that absurd? I went cold. May 20th, what do you mean? Slowly, I asked. My wedding is on that day. Talia laughed like if I had cracked a joke. You didn't, but I know. Nora, copyright the date. You can reschedule too, right? You're having a little wedding. Ours will be enormous. The Armitage Hotel was reserved by us. In order to get us into the ballroom, Aiden's uncle used strings. There was no other day available. My heart fell. One of the city's most elite locations was the Armitage. More significantly, though, why am I dead? I glanced at my parents. They would undoubtedly say something, protect me. My father, however, simply shrugged. Perhaps you should adapt. Most likely, more people will attend his wedding. Press more. The family press will benefit more from it. My mother also added her voice. Don't be tough, Nora. Your ceremony is more intimate. You can reschedule for the following weekend. Everyone will comprehend. I didn't comprehend. My relatives practically wiped my wedding in real time while I sat there blinking. I got to my feet. I will not reschedule. This was planned more than a year ago. Talia's grin dimmed. Avoid becoming self-centered. I wanted to shout. Rather, I just picked up my suitcase and left the room. My mom is calling for me. That evening, consider what's best for the family. I told Julian everything. He remained silent, just held my hand, listened, and said, "We'll work this out." And I had faith in him. I wanted to think he was real. However, the gallery coordinator called me the very following morning. I apologize, Nora, but we just learned of a last-minute alteration. On May 20th, the gallery will no longer be accessible. I gasped. What? Why? A pause occurred. The booking was made in Talia Sinclair's name. My venue was practically seized by my sister. I let the phone drop. I had trembling hands. The world seemed to be tilting sideways, and I felt like I was the only one falling. I recognized then that this was more than a coincidence. It was more than simply a date with Talia. I was being erased by her. However, she was unaware of Julian's true identity or our next course of action. I clutched the edge of the counter as if it were the only thing holding me up as I stood in the center of our little kitchen. I could still hear the gallery coordinator's comments. The booking was made in Talia Sinclair's name. My date wasn't only taken by her. She had chosen the precise location. When Julian and I first met, we had given everything we had. The scene where I saw myself walking down the aisle with everyone who was familiar with our tale, and she ignored it as if it didn't exist. When Julian entered with 2 coffees, he stopped when he noticed my expression. I didn't need to speak. The gallery was taken by her. I said, hardly raising my voice above a whisper. Julian put down the mugs and took 2 steps across the room. Gently, he added, "We'll find another place." "No," I said. "You don't understand. It had nothing to do with logistics. It was a personal matter." She waited for everything to be ready. Then she took action. Talia was someone I knew. She had a charming but phony grin. It was driven by a desire to be at the center of everything. Unless the spotlight shone brightly and everyone else vanished into the shadows, she wasn't content. And she was born into the limelight in our family. My parents' response, when I told them what had happened, was precisely what I had anticipated. "Well," Dad remarked dismissively, "perhaps you ought to have completed the deposit sooner." Yes, I did. It was outbid by her. Mom didn't even act apologetic. It is only a location. Nora. Drama between sisters is not worth it. Act like the larger guy, the larger individual. Always me. The mature one. Always the silent one. The person who stooped to let others shine. However, something inside of me exploded this time. I ceased responding to Talia's texts. When she shared pictures of her ideal venue, which included the room I used to call my home, I banned her on Instagram. The wedding board I've been creating for a year was erased. I informed Julian that I no longer wanted to do this. He raised his gaze from his sketchbook. "What are you going to do? Act as like nothing is wrong. As they obliterate me, act as though I can simply grin through it." Julian was silent for a while. He just shut down his sketchbook, got up, and grabbed his phone. He said, "Come with me." We were silent for over an hour as we traveled. I didn't inquire about our destination. A portion of me, I believe, didn't care. I felt as though my heart had been removed and left on the gallery floor because I was so emotionally and psychologically spent. We eventually arrived at an ivy-lined gate. The instant a security guard noticed Julian, he opened. "Where are we?" At last, I inquired. Julian only grinned. somewhere you can't be taken from. We reached a private art estate after turning down a lengthy stone driveway. I'm referring to a large contemporary glass pavilion that appears to have been created by an architectural deity and is tucked away in a forest. It features private gardens, internal gallery wings, and a reflecting pool. Julian, what is this location? I had never seen him so composed as he turned to face me. It's mine, I blinked. What? Nora, he added, I haven't been entirely honest with you. I created it for myself. I own a studio, investments. I have maintained a low profile because I have witnessed the transformation of individuals when money is involved. I was dumbfounded when I looked at him. He went on, This is my private gallery, which you may use for the wedding if you'd like, for anything. In startled stillness, I sat there. He had no intention of impressing me. More than a venue, he was offering me something. He was offering me options, honor, strength. Despite the tears in my eyes, I forced a smile. Talia is about to go crazy. Julian grinned. She doesn't know what's going to happen. And the emotional roller coaster plunged once more right when I thought it had peaked. I received a notification on my phone that evening. Talia's fiancé, Aiden, had recently followed me on Instagram, which was strange because we had never communicated. Then, a direct message. You are worthy of better than what they inflicted upon you. Can we have a conversation? I spent a whole minute looking at my phone. You are worthy of better than what they inflicted upon you. Can we speak with Talia's fiancé, Aiden? I initially assumed it must have been an error. Perhaps he intended to send it to a different person. Or perhaps he was merely attempting to stir things up. However, the message remained intentional, unambiguous. I had just locked the screen when Julian entered. Are you all right? He handed me a glass of wine and asked. I nodded grudgingly. Yes, merely attempting to take it all in. I kept the message a secret from him. Not quite yet. Instead, I just said one word in response to Aiden. Why? He responded almost immediately. Since I am not blind, I can see what's going on, and I'm beginning to question whether I'll be the next victim. That felt like a chest punch. I understood that feeling, not because I cared about Aiden. That exact moment when you realize someone you love might be manipulating you, not supporting you. Would it be possible for us to meet? Nothing strange, just coffee, somewhere public, against my better judgment. I agreed. We met the next afternoon at a cafe near downtown. I wore sunglasses and a hoodie, praying no one would recognize me. He showed up in a charcoal blazer, looking more like a man on a job interview than a romantic fiancé. He sat down and didn't waste time. I didn't know she stole your venue, he said. She told me it was available, that you decided to delay your wedding for budget reasons. I almost laughed. She lied. Obviously. He sighed and rubbed his face. That's what I'm starting to realize. This whole wedding, it's like a marketing campaign for her. Everything's about the optics. She keeps pushing for me to get sponsorships for the ceremony. She even hired a videographer who's worked on reality shows. I felt my stomach twist last week. She asked if we could pretend to have met at a beach in Bali, so it sounds more exotic. What? I choked. Yeah, she said, our real story wasn't share-worthy enough. We sat in silence for a moment, the noise of clinking cups and background music muffled by the pressure building in my chest. And then Aiden leaned in. I also found out something else, he muttered. She has a burner phone. I blinked. Excuse me? She hides it in her makeup drawer. I saw her texting someone late at night, laughing, deleting messages. When I asked, she got defensive, said I was paranoid. I gazed at him, cold realization flooding my veins. You think she's cheating? He gave a shrug. I don't know, but I don't trust her anymore. And I can't ignore this sick feeling that I'm just another prop in her perfect image. I didn't know what to say. I had expected drama, yes, but this was unraveling faster than I could track. As we parted, Aiden looked me dead in the eye. Whatever you're planning, I want to help. That night, I told Julian everything. The messages, the meeting, the burner phone. To my surprise, he didn't look angry. He looked ready. This is exactly why we don't back down, he said. They wanted to humiliate you. Now we show them who you really are. The next few days were a whirlwind. Julian made calls, quiet ones, discreet ones. He asked me to trust him, and I did. Then came the invitations. Ours went out firsthand, delivered beautifully printed with gold leaf detail and custom calligraphy. But there was more. Every single one included a private RSVP code linked to a luxury estate venue, the Redwood Pavilion, a place I'd never even heard of until Julian showed me. But apparently in his circle, it was the venue. People were already talking, and that had happened. Talia called me after weeks of silence. She wasn't angry, she was smug. Hey sis, she could. Just wanted to let you know we're releasing our wedding trailer on social media this weekend. Thought you'd want a heads up since, yours might look a bit underwhelming in comparison. I said nothing, just let her talk. But 2 days later, before she could drop her big video, she was scooped. An industry blog posted a leaked guest list for our wedding, including several A-list names. It went viral. And ours. Then Talia, worst nightmare, showed up at her doorstep. She messaged me in all caps. Why is Aiden refusing to finalize our guest list? What did you tell him? I didn't reply, because at that exact moment, Julian was in the studio printing the final seating chart, and one seat was reserved for a very special guest. The editor-in-chief of the magazine, Talia, has been begging to feature her in for years. Comment. The number 2. If you want to know what happens when Talia sees who stole her spotlight for good, I always imagined my wedding day would feel magical. Turns out, revenge feels even better. The morning of our wedding arrived with an eerie calm. Portland skies were clear, sunlight flowing through the trees around the Redwood Pavilion. The air was cool, crisp and buzzing with something electric. For the first time in weeks, I felt completely steady. My phone vibrated non-stop with notifications, text messages, missed calls, Instagram tags. Talia had finally seen the article. Architectural heir, Julian Redwood, will marry local artist at private estate celebration. A list guests confirmed she had no idea. Julian hailed from the Redwood family. No notion that the arena she had sought to take was insignificant compared to the one we currently owned. No idea that the little quiet girl she spent her life overshadowing was going to stand in front of Portland's elite and shine like hell. And she clearly didn't know who else was coming. By midday, the estate grounds were packed with people coming in, expensive automobiles, celebrities from the art world, architects, media celebrities, even the governor's wife. Julian greeted them like it was second nature. I sat inside, staring from the bridal room window in quiet shock. Then came the knock. It was Aiden. He looked sharp, clean suit, calm face, but his hand shook as he gave me a little velvet box. "What's this?" I asked. "A little insurance," he remarked, checking to make sure no one was listening by looking at the door. She is unaware that I retained it. There was a flash drive inside. Aiden bent in. Text. "She plotted to ruin your wedding, as evidenced by voice and video records. Acknowledged that it was retaliation for you hijacking the show and attempted to buy off the gallery coordinator to remove you off the schedule." My throat became parched. "She informed me that she could only shine when your light was off. With black eyes," he added. "She had more in mind than simply marrying me. She desired to beat you." I gripped the flash disk tightly. "You're handing me this, but why?" "Because," he added gently, "I'm tired of being used. And because I kinda hope she learns anything from this." A few seconds later, Julian was there. "Be calm," written. "The time has come." Talia had stated that 2 p.m. was her time, and that is precisely when the ceremony started. However, it was mine today. To the tune of a string quartet, I made my way down the aisle, through lines of individuals I never thought would support me. When I got to Julian, my heartbeat was steady and my dress flowed like water. As if it were already home, he grasped my hand. However, the actual retaliation took place at the reception. With his glass in hand, Julian stood for his toast. "We appreciate everyone's presence on this amazing day," he said. "It's not just love today. It's about speaking up when someone attempts to silence you, about honesty, and about integrity." He went on, and the room fell silent. My wife, who is intelligent, kind, and strong, almost had her wedding stolen. The date, the location, and even her self-respect. But rather of drooping, she stood up. He gave me a glance. I gave a nod. Julian pointed to the area where the AV crew was located. We'd want to tell the whole tale today, he added. Behind us, the screen sprang to life. Talia's voice trembled as it came across the speakers. Ansel. She does it every time. She is tender. I own that gallery. Whatever it takes, I don't care. The hall reverberated with gasps. Screenshots of her texting the coordinator and informing Aiden, "This is my year," followed. She is capable of crying. Later, a few visitors appeared appalled. Others acknowledged with nods. They had witnessed such brutality before, encased in charm, glossy with a lovely face. The last scene then showed a covert film that Aiden had taken of Talia and her buddy laughing. She would leave that guy alone if she truly cared about him. Julian, she's not even getting married for love. He is only a poor, artistic man. This is the genuine deal, my wedding. The video ended. There was silence, then cheers, roaring, long, unrelenting. The doors suddenly exploded open. Talia stood by herself in her handmade gown in the back of the room, her makeup still smudged. She glanced around and saw the truth, the eyes, and the judgment. Her mother then came forward. My mom and I exclaimed, "Talia, enough! Go!" Everyone pivoted. Talia's expression fell flat. "What? You have sufficiently shamed this family." "This isn't your day," Mom remarked. The golden kid was now shunned by the same people who had formerly adored her. 3 days after the wedding, she broke down in tears. I received a letter. It's not an email, not an SMS message, an actual envelope written by hand, no address for return. There was only one page of paper inside. "It's not over yet. I lost everything because of you. Simply wait." I was not terrified, even though I should have been, because Talia had already lost her control and her image, which were the two things she cherished most at that time. Her sponsorships fell like flies once the wedding video became online, particularly the scene in which she made fun of Julian and acknowledged that she had ruined my plans. In a public announcement, her management firm severed connections with the high-end skincare line she was starting. Lost. Aiden was the last to strike. In a solemn, respectful statement, he declared that the engagement had been called off because of compatible principles. In Nora's honor, he even gave the money they had paid for their postponed wedding to a women's shelter. As this was going on, Julian and I were getting notes from artists, designers, and even classmates I hadn't spoken to in years, praising me for speaking out against the type of subtle cruelty that so many people tolerate. But right when I thought we were done with it, Talia made another attempt. She arrived at my college. My department knocked and dragged me into the corridor when I was in the middle of a lecture. "She is present," he muttered, "claims that it is urgent." She was pacing like a stymied animal as I entered the faculty lounge. She didn't resemble the girl on social media at all. She had untidy hair. Her nails were either flawless or cracked and rough at the edges, and her fancy coat was fastened incorrectly. Nora. She lost her temper. "This has to be fixed." I blinked. "Please pardon me. My life was wrecked by you, that video. You were not entitled. It was a confidential discussion. Talia, it was you." Calmly, I said, "Your acts and your words." She took a step forward. "I had it everything, and I'm nothing now. Are you content?" "No," I said quietly. "I'm not content or in pain. I finally had enough of being the one who constantly takes a back seat." She looked at me as if she hadn't seen me before. Perhaps she didn't. She used to play with me, but I wasn't her sister. I was a person who had at last made her own decision. Then she committed her last error. She shouted as she sprang at me and grabbed my wrist. "I'll see to it that you two lose everything." Security on campus was contacted. Security filmed 2 students, a professor, and witnesses were all present. I submitted a restraining order later that week. The local press reported the news. A former influencer was charged with making threats. University public breakdown. She has reportedly returned to living with our parents. According to what I've heard, the same. She has returned to living with her parents. The same parents who, rather than justifying her actions, at last advised her to seek help. All of her social media accounts were deleted. Her accounts have been deleted. Once a popular hashtag, her name now evokes silence. And me? I just got back from Florence with Julian for our honeymoon. The peaceful cafes, the art, and the sun. It fulfilled every dream I had. And more. I received a promotion offer from my department. I'm starting a program to support young artists who have experienced nighttime bullying in their artistic endeavors. I realize I didn't just receive justice when I look at Julian. I was free. Freedom from being the underdog in someone else's spotlight, from comparison and from manipulation. Despite her attempts to take everything away from me, Talia ultimately provided me with everything I required. A justification for choosing myself at last. And I will never return that. Comment on the second number if you believe Talia received what was rightfully hers. If you want to read more true revenge stories like this one, don't forget to subscribe.